For years, no one asked questions, until it was too late. The body washed up on the shore of Lake Michigan at dawn, tangled in the reeds near the old Navy pier. Detective Sarah Brennan stood at the water's edge, her breath visible in the October chill, and felt something cold settle in her chest, not from the wind, but from recognition. She knew the dead woman. Everyone in Chicago did. Eleanor Vance, heiress, philanthropist, the woman who'd smiled from magazine covers and charity galas for 30 years, who'd raised millions for the city's forgotten children, who'd buried 2 husbands and emerged from each tragedy more beloved than before. Her silk blouse clung to her like a second skin, her pearls still perfectly knotted at her throat, and her eyes, those famous violet eyes, stared up at the gray sky with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read. Not fear, not peace, something worse. Accusation. Detective. Officer Reyes appeared at her elbow, young and eager, his notepad already out. Medical examiner says she's been in the water maybe 12 hours. No immediate signs of trauma, but she didn't drown, Sarah finished, crouching down despite the crime scene tape snapping in the wind. She'd seen enough floaters in her 15 years with Chicago PD to know the difference. Eleanor's lungs would be dry. Her manicured hands showed no signs of struggle. Someone had placed her here with the same care they'd used to arrange her pearls. Get CSU to sweep the pier. I want every security camera from here to the Gold Coast. Reyes hesitated. Ma'am, her family. I don't care if her family owns half the loop. Someone killed Eleanor Vance, and I want to know why nobody noticed she was missing for 12 hours. Sarah straightened, her coat flapping around her knees. And Reyes? Find me her son. The real one, not the PR version. Now, the real Julian Vance lived in a converted warehouse in Pilsen, surrounded by canvases that bled color and anguish onto every surface. When Sarah knocked, he opened the door with paint-stained fingers and eyes that held no surprise. You're here about my mother, he said, not a question. May I come in? He stepped aside, and Sarah entered a world that couldn't have been more different from the Vance mansion on Astor Street. Here, the windows were streaked with rain and charcoal dust. A half-finished portrait dominated the far wall, a woman with violet eyes and a smile that didn't reach her soul. She hated that I painted, Julian said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug without asking if she wanted any. Said it was beneath the Vance name. But she never stopped me. That was her way, you know. She never stopped anyone from doing anything. She just watched, waited. Sarah took the coffee, more for something to hold than to drink. When did you last see her? Tuesday. Dinner at the house. She made her famous cocoa van and talked about the winter gala, how I needed to attend with a suitable date. He laughed, but it cracked in the middle. I'm 34 years old, detective. I've been unsuitable my entire life. She never said why, never explained what I'd done wrong. Just this endless disappointment wearing a smile. And your brother? Julian's hand tightened on his own mug. Theodore doesn't speak to me. Hasn't in 5 years. Not since. He stopped, turning to the window where the L train rattled past, shaking the glass in its frame. You should talk to him. He lives in her shadow even more than I do. At least I escaped. But as Sarah left, she noticed something Julian hadn't said. He hadn't asked how his mother died. He hadn't expressed shock or grief, or even the hollow anger she usually saw in the newly bereaved. He'd simply accepted it. As if Eleanor Vance's death was inevitable, as if everyone had been waiting for it. Now, Theodore Vance occupied the penthouse of the Vance Foundation building on LaSalle Street, a glassed fortress that reflected the clouds and kept its secrets locked behind biometric scanners. He received her in an office that smelled of leather and old money, behind a desk that had belonged to his grandfather, his great-grandfather. Every Vance patriarch who'd built the empire Eleanor had so elegantly maintained. Detective Brennan. He didn't stand. I assume you're here to tell me you've arrested my brother. The words landed like a slap. Should I have? Theodore, Sarah said, settling into the chair he hadn't offered. Your mother was found dead this morning. No signs of struggle, no obvious cause. Someone she knew, someone she trusted, got close enough to kill her without leaving a mark. Now I can spend weeks digging through the Vance family history, or you can tell me why your first assumption is that your brother did it. For a moment, something flickered behind his perfect composure. Not guilt, loneliness. Julian was always her favorite, he said quietly. The difficult one, the artist. She loved him because he refused to be loved. I gave her everything she asked for. The business degree, the corner office, the suitable wife. He gestured vaguely at a framed photo of a blonde woman who smiled with the same careful emptiness as Eleanor. She never looked at me the way she looked at him, even when he left, even when he painted her as a monster. Was she a monster? Theodore's laugh was genuine and terrible. She was a Vance. We don't have monsters, detective. We have traditions, expectations. The family name must be protected at all costs. He leaned forward, and Sarah saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the years of performing perfection. My mother made 3 phone calls the night she died. One to Julian, which he didn't answer. One to her lawyer, which went to voicemail. And one... He paused, his finger tracing the edge of a silver letter opener. One to a number with no name attached. It lasted 4 minutes. I don't know who it was, but I know she was afraid. Your mother afraid? For the first time in her life. Theodore met her gaze. She said something to me at the gala last month. I thought she was being dramatic. She said, "The past always collects its debts, Teddy. Remember that." Then she touched my cheek, the way she did when I was small, before I learned to be disappointing, and walked away. Sarah felt the familiar prickle of a case turning, of hidden gears beginning to move. What debt, Mr. Vance? I don't know, but I know where to start looking. He opened a drawer and withdrew a key, old brass with the number 217 engraved on its bow. My mother's private storage unit, Lincoln Park. She went there every Tuesday night for 20 years, always alone, always after dark. I followed her once, when I was 16. She caught me at the door. His voice dropped. I've never seen her so angry, or so afraid. She said if I ever went inside, she'd disinherit me. Not just me, the entire family line. She'd burn it all down before letting anyone see what she kept in that room. Sarah took the key, feeling its weight. Why are you giving this to me? Because, Theodore said, turning to the window where Chicago sprawled beneath him, indifferent and immense. For 30 years, no one asked questions. We all knew something was wrong. The Tuesday nights, the locked room, the way she'd disappear into herself for days after certain phone calls. But she was Eleanor Vance. She raised millions for orphans. She chaired the symphony board. She was good, and good people don't have secrets, do they? He laughed hollow. So we didn't ask. Julian painted his monsters. I built my empire of glass and numbers, and we let her keep her Tuesday nights. Until now. Unit 217 in the Lincoln Park storage facility smelled of cedar and dust, of time suspended. Sarah unlocked the door with Theodore's key, her flashlight cutting through the darkness, and felt her breath catch. The room was a shrine, not to Eleanor Vance, but to a life she'd carefully erased. Photographs covered every wall, black and white, faded color, Polaroids curling at the edges. A young woman with Eleanor's violet eyes, but harder, hungrier, standing on a street corner in a neighborhood Sarah didn't recognize. The same woman in a diner booth, laughing with a man whose face had been scratched from every photo. The same woman holding a baby in a hospital corridor, her expression fierce and terrified. And names. Hundreds of names, written in Eleanor's elegant hand, pinned to a corkboard that spanned the entire back wall. Some had dates beside them. Some had newspaper clippings. Many had red lines drawn through them. Sarah stepped closer, her heart hammering, and read the first name she recognized. Margaret Holloway, 1987, disappeared. Then another. James Chen, 1992, drowning, ruled accidental. Then another, and another, until the pattern emerged like a photograph developing in darkroom chemicals. Eleanor Vance hadn't been a philanthropist. She'd been an archivist, a collector of endings. Every name on that wall was someone who'd crossed the Vance family, who'd threatened the empire, who'd asked too many questions. And every red line meant they'd stopped asking permanently. At the center of the board, circled in gold ink, was a name Sarah knew. Detective Frank Brennan. 2003. Car accident. Her father. The flashlight trembled in her hand. Her father had died when she was 19. His car found wrapped around a tree on Lakeshore Drive, empty bottle of bourbon on the seat. She'd spent 15 years believing the official story, believing he'd been a drunk, a failure, a man who'd thrown his life away. But Frank Brennan had been working a case the week he died, a case involving the Vance Foundation, a case he'd never talked about, that had vanished from his desk the night of the crash. Sarah reached out and touched her father's name, and behind her, the storage unit door clicked shut. "You're so much like him," Eleanor Vance said. Sarah spun, her hand going to her weapon, but Eleanor wasn't armed. She stood in the shadows, water still dripping from her silk blouse, her pearls gleaming in the flashlight's beam. Impossible. Sarah had seen the body. She'd stood over the corpse on Navy Pier. "No," Eleanor said, reading her face. "You saw what I wanted you to see. A body prepared, a scene staged. I've been planning my death for 20 years, detective. Ever since I realized I couldn't outrun the names on that wall." She moved into the light, and Sarah saw the truth. This wasn't a ghost. This was a woman who'd faked her death with the same meticulous care she'd applied to everything else. "Your father was a good man. Too good. He found this room, just like you. He was going to expose everything, the payoffs, the disappearances, the way the Vance family built its fortune on silence and blood. So you killed him. I saved him." Eleanor's voice cracked, the first real emotion Sarah had seen. He was going to go public with no evidence, no protection. The family would have destroyed him, his reputation, his family. You. I gave him an alternative. Disappear. Start over. He refused. She touched her pearls, her fingers shaking. "The car accident wasn't my doing. It was theirs. The family. I tried to warn him. I failed. And I've spent 20 years adding names to that wall, trying to keep track of the damage, trying to find some way to stop it. Why now? Why fake your death? Because I finally have enough." Eleanor reached behind the corkboard and withdrew a leather ledger, its pages swollen with documents. Every transaction, every order, every name of every person who knew and did nothing. Your father's case file, hidden where they couldn't find it. Proof that the Vance Empire isn't a business, it's a machine for making people disappear. She held it out. Sarah saw the desperation in her eyes, the exhaustion of decades spent wearing a mask. "I was 18 when they pulled me in, a girl from the South Side with violet eyes and no options. They made me into Eleanor Vance, and I let them, because the alternative was ending up on that wall. But I'm 62 years old, detective. I'm tired, and I'm done being afraid." Sarah took the ledger, feeling its weight match the key in her pocket. "Julian and Theodore? Don't know. They've spent their lives performing the roles I taught them, rebel and heir, outcast and golden boy. I gave them that script to keep them safe, to keep them away from the center." Eleanor's smile was sad, real, nothing like the magazine covers. "Julian paints monsters because he senses them. Theodore builds walls because he learned early that love is conditional. They're both better men than their mother. They deserve to know the truth. But more than that." She stepped closer, and Sarah smelled lake water and expensive perfume, the scent of a woman who'd drowned herself in layers to survive. They deserve to be free. The Vance name is a prison, detective. I've spent my life as its warden. I want you to be the one who burns it down. The arrest warrants were issued at dawn, 3 days later. Theodore Vance Sr., Eleanor's brother-in-law, patriarch of the real family empire, was pulled from his bed in the Gold Coast mansion and led away in handcuffs. The ledger held enough evidence to bury them all. Decades of corruption, murder dressed as accident, silence purchased with blood and money. Julian Vance was painting when Sarah found him, adding gold leaf to a canvas that finally showed his mother not as monster or saint, but as a woman. He didn't turn when she entered. "She's not dead," he said. It wasn't a question. "No, she's in protective custody. She'll testify. And then? And then she'll be someone else. Someone free." Sarah stood beside him, watching the gold catch the light. "She asked me to tell you something. She said the coq au vin was always for you. The only thing she ever cooked herself. The only thing that was real." Julian's brush stopped. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, "And Theodore? Helping the prosecution. Turns out he was better with numbers than anyone knew. He's traced every account, every shell company. The empire's finished, Julian. All of it." "Good." He dipped his brush again, but his hand was steady now, lighter. "I spent my life hating her for what she didn't give me. I never asked what she couldn't give. What was taken from her first." He looked at Sarah, and his eyes held the same violet as his mother's, but clearer, younger. "Thank you for asking the questions, Detective. Someone should have, years ago." Sarah Brennan stood on Navy Pier at sunset, watching the lake turn the color of Eleanor's eyes. The case was closed, the files sealed, the Vance empire crumbling in courts and headlines. Her father's name would be cleared. The names on the wall would finally have justice. But she thought of Eleanor hidden somewhere with a new name and an old ledger, and wondered if freedom was something you could find after a lifetime of being someone else. She thought of Julian painting in his warehouse, of Theodore finally stepping from his glass tower into uncertain light. She thought of her own father, who'd tried to ask questions and paid with his life, and of all the people who'd looked at the Vance family and seen only philanthropy, only grace, only the performance of goodness. For years, no one asked questions. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of water and distance. Sarah pulled her coat tighter and turned toward the city, where the L trains rattled and the lights were coming on in windows, where ordinary lives continued, where people loved and failed and tried again, where secrets festered in silence and truth sometimes found its voice, until it was too late. But sometimes, she thought, walking into the amber evening, it wasn't too late. Sometimes the questions came just in time. Sometimes the dead could speak through the living, and the past could finally settle its debts not in blood, but in light. Closing note. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If these characters felt real to you, if Sarah's determination, Julian's art, Theodore's quiet strength, and Eleanor's complicated redemption resonated in some small way, then you've found your channel. We believe stories should mean something. They should ask hard questions, hold space for imperfect people trying to become better, and remind us that it's never too late to seek the truth, even when silence feels safer. Good luck out there. Keep asking questions. Keep looking closer. And if you want more stories that dig beneath the surface, more suspense that keeps you up at night, more romance that feels earned, more characters who stay with you long after the final word, then be sure to stay on this channel. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us for what comes next. Because the best stories, they're the ones we tell together. See you in the next one.